The impact of food deserts and gentrification on minority communities. My name is Adam Joseph Ropizar, and this is my final presentation for IDS 4232, Sustainability in Action. Thinking about that dual intersection, the first one we'll look at is food deserts. The concept of food desert itself exists within the conversation of equitable access to healthy foods. For a rough definition of food deserts, this access is defined as no supermarket being present that services fresh vegetables or groceries within a mile. The lack of fresh and healthy food has threads connected towards diseases and conditions like obesity and diabetes, which is often seen to affect minority communities at higher rates. In the little infographic on the right from the Department of Agriculture's Center for Disease Control, it highlights where individuals are where they both have no car and no supermarket within a mile. As you can see, this trend is often within the South, as there's very higher percentages of being over 10%. This is a very strong thing when you think about the dual intersection of communities, because oftentimes minority communities are the ones who will have no car and rely on things like public transportation or walking to get their groceries. So oftentimes they are the ones who have to go to the most readily accessible option, which is often not something that is actually sustainable for their own well-being. Looking now at gentrification. Gentrification summarizes the act of conforming a certain area, activity, or item to fit the societal model of upper/middle class citizens. Gentrification is often seen as a multifaceted issue because it does not take into consideration the people who were previously living within an area, as well as the current needs of the area that is being conformed. Another point of alarm behind gentrification is that individuals affected have historically been those of minority communities, specifically people of color. This is a very big issue that is emerging, and a lot more conversation is happening about it due to the fact that it is impacting minority communities at such higher rates. People are being pushed out of their homes due to gentrification, as you can see on the infographic on the right. When something starts to become more popularized and it starts to conform a little bit to those societal expectations, something can start to get overrun completely. So individuals who were previously living in an area that worked for them and had, for example, a low rent price might start to get pushed out as this gentrification occurs all around them. This forces them to move to areas that are often food deserts and might not have the same opportunities or equitable access that other areas would otherwise have. If we think a little bit about the sustainability of minority communities in these urban areas, it highlights a few more important factors. In places that are considered urban, it is often found that minority communities have been there for decades prior, with their culture and history deeply entwined within. In the same instances, as areas become more commonplace and frequented, they begin to gather more acclaim, which often brings invalid scrutinization. The scrutinization is often reported to be used as a weapon to target minority communities' practices and police their behaviors, affecting majorly lower class socioeconomic status individuals. This is a very big thing, and it happens quite often, as we can see through both first-hand reports and research that has been gathered. It shows that when individuals start frequenting a place more, they start to scrutinize it more, and they want to see changes occur. Oftentimes, these changes have not been consulted with the people who are actually living there, and even if it was done with no malharm intent, it can often create that damage that is irreversible. Thinking about the intersection between gentrification and food deserts, it's very prevalent when you put them side by side. With gentrification not taking into account the various aspects of minority communities previously in the area, specifically their socioeconomic status, they often find that their living conditions rapidly become unsustainable as prices spike. In terms of food deserts, statistically shown, areas with less expensive rent prices are more likely to not have grocery markets readily available. These are often the areas that are seen as less desirable by society, causing no infrastructure change to occur to address this. Faced with increasing prices in their own neighborhoods, minority communities often find themselves trapped within food deserts as they are forced to move. This can cause enormous pressure within urban areas to exist stagnantly, as places become more and more gentrified for the upper class. Specifically with this, we are going to be looking at some Broward County data to see how this intersection between minority communities and food deserts does exist and what is currently being done to try to combat that. In Broward County, you can use the Department of Agriculture's Atlas system to see the zip codes that fit the criteria of being low income and low access for these healthy food options, as well as how it goes up with degrees. In the infographic on the right, which is taken from a screenshot of the Atlas system, you can just see how many within that one county are actually considered food deserts due to that intersection of being low access and being low income. Specifically within the screenshot of Broward County, there's over a dozen zip codes that fit the criteria of being low income and low access at the lowest degree, with dozens more if you increase the range slightly to being more than half a mile from a supermarket. To look at it even further, we analyzed the low income census tracts, the black population, and the recorded food deserts within Broward County. And when looking at it, if you put them side by side, you can begin to see that overlay of areas that are low income, how that relates to the percentage of the black population, and how that relates to the food deserts. This shows a scary and staggering statistic of black and minority populations essentially being forced to exist within this area of a food desert, while areas that have 0% black, for example, have no food deserts and have a no low income census tracts. This shows a trend which needs to be analyzed to see what exactly can occur in these communities and what is happening in these communities to strengthen almost the accessibility to healthy food to bring individuals out of a food desert. There's several current strategies in place that are both done by the government themselves and local individuals to try to bring people out of food deserts. The first one is mobile grocery markets. This is a big one that is being pushed within minority communities because when you think about it, you also have to take into account the intersection of them possibly not having access to a vehicle. Mobile grocery markets are essentially an idea to have a grocery on wheels. This would allow the grocery to go towards individual neighborhoods where people could actually go to the grocery as it comes by and purchase their vegetables or their fruit. This creates a sense of accessibility for people who might otherwise not be able to leave the area to actually get access to this healthy food. Another one is accessibility for residents to plant their own vegetables. This is both a long-term and short-term achievement because on the short term, it'll be giving them the opportunity to get their own produce, but in the long term, it often builds strengths within the community and teaches them how to do this for themselves so they don't have to rely on possibly unequal markets. The next one is within local transient farmers markets. This has a dual intersection because on one end, it brings the groceries to the individuals who need it the most, and on the other end, it gives the individuals who are making their own produce a chance to sell it in a way that will directly benefit their own community. And the last one comes with some pre-planned health deliverables, which is where people would be able to order healthy food options for themselves after consulting with a nutritionist to see what would be best for them and have it delivered on a weekly basis so they don't have to worry about whether or not they would be able to get that healthy food option. Thinking about the conclusions from some of the data that was gathered, it definitely seems like the best option to combat this dual intersection of gentrification and food deserts within minority communities is to foster self-growth within the community itself. This allows the individuals there to take charge while also giving them a path out essentially to where they can become more sustainable on their own grounds.